call to order the Monday, November 3rd, 2025 Board Finance Committee meeting. Just for the record, Board Member Trustee Antonio Aguilar will not be here today. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. The next one, roll call.
Trustee Aguilar not present. Trustee Davis.
Here. Okay, we'll skip 2.4, no one for remote. Changing the order of business, going once, going twice, moving on. We'll skip 2.6. We have any public comment or request for public comment?
No.
Okay, so we finished with 2.7. Get caught up here. We'll dive right into 3.1, which is the 2025 annual financial and budget report under CCFS 311A.
All right, so included in your packet is our 311A annual report. And this document is essentially a fund accounting look at our financials before it then gets made into a different mess as it relates to our financial statements. And so in the last couple of years, I brought this forward to this group just to make you aware of what this report is, how it separates out both the balance sheet items, the income state items. So you can really get a good glimpse as to how the specific fund is doing, what it may look like. We won't go too far in because we'll start off on the 50% law, which I think is the first report in there. And then there are a few other reports that are included in this. First being the 50% law, which we'll talk about briefly. And then there's some transfers and even some, what do you think is going to happen to your person STRS rates into the future? So some informational items, some items that that the Chancellor's office has felt are such a hot topic, such as 50% law, that they want it front and center here. So first couple of pages of this document are the 50% law calculations. We have determined for the fiscal year ending 24-25 on page 4 in the, it's called the third column, percent of CEE or our instructional salary cost to current expense of education is at 50.51. One less page, one page back.
No, it was on 4.
It was on 4. Okay.
Yeah. It's right above that little black.
Yeah. So we, what this law requires is that 50% of unrestricted Fund 11 be spent on instructional type expenditures, and those are primarily salaries and benefits. So even though we may have technology and some other expenses that benefit us in the classroom, they technically don't count. We may be able to exclude them. Capital costs and a few other things are able to be excluded. But year over year, we've been able to make this percentage. Yes, the percentage is always close. Yes, there's always conversations statewide. We need to get rid of the 50% law. We need to include counselors and librarians who are technically counted on the wrong side of the 50% law, even though they are so instrumental as it relates to the benefit of our college students. And so,
How about tutors?
tutors in the classroom do count.
Tutors in the.
Even in like a math lab and others, they do,
Okay.
as long as they're under direct supervision of an instructor. And so, yes, our labs are established where there is that direct oversight. We are able to count those expenditures. There are some exclusions such as lottery and a few other things. And there was a statewide audit on the 50% law, and The state didn't get what they want, so we anticipate hearing more as it relates to the 50% law in the next couple of years as it relates to potential legislation,
Yeah.
but from the
I'll bring it.
CBO board and from the
Yeah.
CBO board, we continually try to say, listen, this is a
They heard it,
1960
yeah.
law.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense with the technology that we utilize in the classroom.
Does it come up in bargaining?
No.
No, but the Central Valley is very strong. Actually, we're leading, the Central Valley is leading on this 50% law. Just even
Trying to-
want it, yeah, they want it, yeah.
So I'm gonna skip a bunch of the pages unless you had any questions on, first you go through the balance sheet. I'm looking through page 13. So even further than that. About page. Well, no, then we start getting into, start on from 3 to, sorry. 22, we start to get into the revenues. And what's neat about these next couple of pages is you can see both Fund 11 and Fund 12. They're calling them Fund S11 and Fund S12. Unrestricted and restricted. So we use those same terms here. We use Fund 11 and Fund 12 in that same thing. But you can look into the restricted account where normally we might not go into all the detail. But you can see where our different revenue sources are coming from, both looking at federal resources and state resources, digging your way into local revenues as it relates to property tax and whatnot. As we get to page 26 and beyond, this information on page 26, let's see our instructional activity expenditures. So now you can see it by program. So if you're really interested, how much money did we spend on the foreign language program? Never mind, because that one's right. I'm kidding, it must be in English and other. Let's go to the health program, row 1200. What this pulls in is both Fund 11 and Fund 12. So there could be both grants or categorical programs. And it shows you how much is instructional, non-instructional operating expenses, and if there are any applicable capital outlay. And that goes through all the instructional programs, and then it gets you into the support type expenses. So I'm looking at the top of page 28. Let's see where I want to go. Let's go to the bottom of page 28. So for instance, we can see operation and maintenance of plant. If you scroll down just a little bit on the screen. And for instance, since Yolanda's in the room, we can see that total operation and maintenance of plant between Funds 11 and 12, it was $16.7 million in expenditures. You can see how much of that relates to salary and benefit, operating costs and whatnot. And so this is always good when slightly above that without scrolling, you can see specific programs, financial aid administration, $2.8 million. Now, of course, that's combining both Columbia and NJC together on these expenditures. And so the statewide report doesn't go into that detail. The next many pages then are the revenues and expenses for each fund. And the report ends up with, I think, some lottery reports and an interfund transfer document before finishing up with our estimated STRS and PERS increases. So this is a document, Mary, do you put this one together?
Yeah.
This is a document that Mary puts together as we've essentially closed our books, we're done with the journal entries. This is submitted to the chancellor's office, I think by October 10th or 15th of each year. And essentially, these numbers should match up with our audited financial statements. But again, when you see our audited financial statements, they essentially smush it all together. And I do feel that this is a better way of looking at our financial position. Good news about a report like this, you want to see how our neighbors are doing, you can go out to the Chancellor's Office website. And soon after October 10th, when everyone submitted their reports, you can pull up this report for any of the other California community colleges to see what their detail looks like. With that, I'll answer any questions.
On the 50% law, you said it's a 50% of, I didn't follow you, 50% of expenses or 50% of revenue?
It's a Fund 11, it is of expenses, and there are certain exclusions. Trying to see on page I'm on.
What?
So on page 4, I'm going to columns 1 and 2, where the actual data is presented. In column 1, that is what we consider to be the good side of the 50% law. Those are the instructional related costs that the Chancellor's Office has determined go on the numerator of the classification. Those expenses, plus all the other expenses, show up on the second column, which is the denominator. Now, there is a third column that we see there for excluded activities, and these include certain activities that are for like extracurricular activities. I believe athletics is excluded from this, transportation and other type Fund 11 expenses. And so of our $150 million in expenses on the bottom of page 4, it looks like we are excluding $875,000 by that column. And again, that's not something that we have concerns about as it relates to what are we putting in there. We're very confident of what we're excluding from the process.
So the acronym CEE stands for what?
Current expense of education.
I got you. Okay.
And there was, for your K-12 background, there was a similar calculation that the K-12s do.
Yes.
They just aren't quite apples and apples. Slightly different way that they put it together, but where you're trying to meet that current expense of education on the K-12 is similar here to our colleges.
On page 48 on our pension file. I think in 28, 29, 29, 30, anticipating rates are actually going to go down a little bit.
When we look at this dartboard that we have available to us from School Services of California, yes, we are finally seeing that small step down in pension rates. What we haven't seen throughout the entire thing is you can see that the STRS rates don't move, right? So we still haven't had a legislature go about changing that rate. STRS rates, or excuse me, the PERS rates are looked at each May, and it can be adjusted. But for now, that dashboard is showing those rates coming down slightly. Ever so slightly. And this is for informational purposes.
Any further questions? And on to 3.2, the quarterly report on the district's financial condition.
Scroll too fast through this. I'll pay a little bit of attention to some of these numbers. Go down to yeah, I do want you to. Have the cash balance on this?
Yeah, top of page 2.
Top of page 2. Thank you. That's kind of what I was looking for. You can see on the top of page 2, And this is both Fund 11 and Fund 12. You can see in row H.1, which is the very first row, our cash balances do continue to increase. So where we had 61.8 million in cash, growing to 83.6 million, then to 90.6. We're currently seeing ourselves at about $96.4 million in cash. That obviously has some relation to our fund balance number, although the percentage on the fund balance is one thing, the overall amount, as we spend more money each year, even keeping fund balance the same, you would obviously expect to have more dollars in reserves. And looking at the actual, just slightly above that, our ending fund balance for both Fund 11 and Fund 12 came in at about 57. So of the 96 million, about 57 million of that was related to Fund 11 and Fund 12 balance information. So it used to be something that the state agency would say cash is king. You know, when you get hit with deferrals and other type fiscal issues, knowing that you have cash on hand can really help you get through those negative time periods. And so I'm very pleased to show how good our cash balances are. We do know that as the Federal Reserve lowers the overall interest rates that we're hearing about, that will eventually drive down our interest income. But even a lower interest income percentage on a high cash balance will continue to do well for us in the next couple of years as it relates to our budget. So scrolling past all this to the page that Jeremy.
Well, let's go back to the cash on hand. What would be, in your mind, a safe amount? I mean, we've got the board mandate amount. How much over that would you like to see kind of held continually?
I'm going to take a step back. So as it relates to cash, I have no preference on what we have. The more, the merrier. I think what the board generally is interested in is making sure we have sufficient reserves, which is established by board policy, also by the requirement of the state chancellor's office, looking at about approximately 2 months of reserves. When we do that calculation, we're only doing it on Fund 11. And so we have a ton of expenditures in Fund 12. So having additional cash and whatnot set aside does well for us. So as a K-14 entity, government agency, we can't say, oh, we've got too much cash. Let's invest it somewhere other than the county treasury. We are restricted on how we utilize those dollars. And primarily those funds must be invested in the county treasury, which those securities that the county treasury buys are usually less than 5 years in duration. So it would simply could be a little more aggressive on excess cash, but unfortunately we're restricted by government code.
No, I get that.
Yeah. So where, if it was fund balance, where would I like to see it? Probably pretty consistent with what we have been doing as it relates to establishing of our budget, which is probably in 20 to 10%. We've been ending higher than that, and we've described how, even though we've allocated budgets, not all dollars are with each and every year. Each site has been conservative with their expenses, which then has allowed our fund balance to increase over the last couple of years. So I'm always happy to present to the board a balanced budget and one in which reserves I think are reasonable.
Just thinking more of what Yolanda would like to do, but
Yes, and I'll explain that a little bit in this next page. So this document at the top is showing us our revenues compared to budget, and then you can see a snapshot of how is the current year looking compared, first quarter compared to the prior year, first quarter. And things are looking very consistent as it relates to compared to budget, as well as it relates to the prior year. Lottery, we book in accounts receivable at the end of the year, and state lottery is slow to pay. And so once we get our fourth quarter payment from last year, that negative will actually fill itself up and won't be negative. So it's not like we wrote a check back to the lottery. That's not what happened. It's just part of our year-end close process with showing the accounts receivable. As it relates to expenses, by scrolling down.
How does that affect auditors when they see that? I mean, that's an expectation that they would have, that you would like write it up as a liability.
They would look to see our AR balance as of June 30, 2025. So they only cared what we had established as of last June 30th. And so when we did our estimates of how much we think is going to come in, we're using information from the chancellor's office and the state lottery to help establish that accounts receivable that we set.
And no issues with them.
No, not that I'm aware of specifically for lottery.
I provide them with a copy of the entry.
Okay, and they, okay.
Scrolling down to expenditures, we break it out by sites. We can see again, how is current year expenses going compared to prior year. And in row 15, we can see we've already spent 92.48% of budget. And I believe 8 million of that is the budgeted transfer to Fund 41 for facilities type projects. There are some other transfers that are included in that 9.7 million, where again, year to date, we've already made $9 million of that. It's usually my intent, once we get the board to approve the final budget, that we transfer those dollars over to the other fund to allow Yolanda or wherever else we're transferring dollars to, for them to continue on with those expenses. So obviously, if we back that expense out, we would be probably consistent or even lower than last year's expenses compared to budget. You do see that MJC in row 11 is slightly below. Columbia is well below. Columbia did have some potential expenditure overages last year, so seeing that number come down a little bit is a good thing. Central services, I can't specifically tell you why it's a couple of percent higher. Year to date, it's likely to do with other significant.
But New Orleans, that's why.
There you go. So what we budgeted for in row 17 is for our Fund 11 ending fund balance to end up at $36.2 million. And year to date, it's tracking towards that. I believe, nope, that's it. This report.
And this is something you look, it's a report, but we still do an approval. Is it an action item?
And we send the first 3 pages, which is that landscape document, that goes to the chancellor's office. So I believe on the board, it'll be as a consent item.
Gotcha.
So you like to see prior statement about fund balance, you're saying about 25% of what our budget is?
Of expenditure.
Expenditure.
Usually of expenditures. Now, the hard part is when we wrote our policy, we have backed out one-time expenditures. So for instance, if we spent $8 million to Fund 41 as a one-time expense, we would not include that in the calculation. But if we were, let me just do that quickly. So if I take 36, 270, 239. Divide that by all the expenditures budgeted at 72884. It ends up being 19.26%. So again, in the calculation, if we were to back out transfers or these other one-time expenses, we are higher than that 19%.
So 25% would be what? I know, but
Well, honestly, I would probably look at the total revenue amount, right? Because the total revenue doesn't include
Well,
one time. It's for the most part, it is ongoing revenue. And I try to build a budget for you that includes on-time expense or one ongoing, excuse me. Ongoing. So if I was to take 25% of 167,606,356, be around 41.9 million. So we're close to that. And I have a feeling because we will underexpend as we always do, we'll end up probably around that 41%.
see if there's any dollars along there.
I absolutely appreciate the board's effort over the last several years in taking a part of the budget and moving over to that fund. We used to get for maintenance dollars, which were never significant, always $3 to $6 million, but that helped with basic carpets and this and that. And now we're getting zero. And so the board's actions have been very helpful over the last several years.
We had more than 8 million.
Yes.
Okay. 3.3, full-time equivalent student update.
Okay. I think I have a pretty quick update for you today. We'll just focus on the purple column for 25-26. And I ran this information for the projected FTS for regular summer and fall on October 24th. So for the purple numbers and the regular summer column, we have 2,043 FTS. I think it went up about 7 FTS from the last time we met. We've had some additional positive attendance hours that were entered at the colleges. And so that is just the current FTS in the system for that term. And then for fall, I ran all of the current FTS in the system for our census-based courses, as well as estimated positive attendance hours for our positive attendance classes. So there's a lot of projected hours in the mix of that term. So we will see that fluctuate a little bit. But we're at 7,719 FTES, which is much higher than I think we originally anticipated. Enrollment is up. If you look section to section in the system, we're seeing stronger enrollment for most of our sections. I was kind of comparing how many sections we're running this fall compared to last fall, and it was up 41 sections, not a significant amount really overall. So you run around 2,100. So we're up a little bit, but I wouldn't say the cost of the courses run is up at all, or by much. So yeah, it's just really strong enrollment we're seeing. And for now, I left spring and our early start summer flat. We have now begun enrolling for those terms. So when we meet next month, I'll have projected spring FTS based on the sections in there. And I think the projections will be a little more clear for that term because we have our new standardized formula now and all of our formatting of our projections in the system. So I think that'll help pull in a more realistic view.
Be safe to assume they probably be up.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, I don't know if we need it on this report, but it would be interesting to see, and of these FTEs, this is how many were outfunded. You know, so you have 2054, but we were funded at whatever level, or 17.
Well, our hope at the end of the year is that it's all funded.
They true up at the end of the year.
Yes. Now, will that happen? No.
Yeah.
We're hopeful. But even last year, even though we got a lot of extra money last year, we still had some that was unfunded. So what we're looking at with these numbers, and I think Mary would even agree with me that realistically spring's going to be higher than even what's in there now. Currently, we're showing year over year 3.67% higher, looking at that 17,259. And in the state budget, they're only allowing currently for 0.5% of growth. We are hopeful that they will fund more of that growth.
And also at the trustee conference, a bunch of CEO got together. So we're looking at advocating for district that has growth like ours, because other districts are not growing. So there's a collective group of CEOs saying, yeah, our team is doing a great job and we're surpassing, we should be rewarded for that. So just know that's brewing on the CEO side.
I know, it won't make you happy with the people that are declining. Right, because if it's a zero-sum game, somebody goes down and somebody goes up.
And it could be regionally, it could be what's happening in their particular region, right? So obviously, Southern California, a lot of unrest. Central Valley, we're a little bit more stable with what's going on nationally. And Victor Valley is doing really great. So there's all that. But ultimately, see, always say, I want growth. So we're saying, hey, you want growth, we give you growth, so we should be rewarded for it. So you're right, it's a
Not me, I mean, I'm on your side. Hope it never turns out the other way.
Yeah.
yeah.
It goes around, comes around. Oh.
But we say that Trevor's gonna save all those fun.
I appreciate what Mary pointed out. It seemed like about 41 new sections. There are some dollars allocated primarily to NKC to make sure that they could fund their schedule. And if we continue to get funded for growth, I am anticipating for next year that both colleges would have a little bit of those growth dollars to make sure that we can serve the students in our community. But even though we have had unfunded growth, we are serving all the students. Is it maybe hard to get a specific class? I would agree with that. But are we restricting access? No, we are not.
But also what we're going to do is we're also gonna look at completion rate, because the growth is, are there students on the wait list because they're failing class, they're repeating class or things. So that is something I'm working with Lucas, because we really want to close the gap on completion and retention. So I think that would be the next phase. We'll look at that.
Okay. Evaluate 4.1, evaluation of construction. Vice Chancellor of District Administrative Services will discuss the potential engagement of external consultants to support the initiation and completion of upcoming construction-related projects. This brief conversation will help assess the district's needs and explore available service options.
Briefly, going back to 2004, right? Let's start there. In 2004, this district did go for the measured reading. I have that right, bond. And so between 2004 and 2019, 2020 or so, we spent those dollars. And I wasn't here at the beginning of that project, but I was here at the end of the project. And what we had to assist us as it related to the management of those construction projects was an external vendor that assisted with the review, the budgeting, contractor conversations for those projects. So essentially the project management. We are at the point where we're adding a significant number of projects, especially coming out of COVID. Each college has been allocated one-time dollars that they are then utilizing. We even have categorical programs that never used to allow the expenditures on
Furniture.
facility-related projects that now have that as an allowance. And we have two individuals, which is Yolanda and one other, that essentially manage these construction projects. And so what I'm proposing, and would seek the input of at least the two of you, is to utilize essentially part of those one-time funds that we've allocated over to Fund 41 to interview and hire construction firm that will assist with this program management. So the expectation of utilizing these services is that we are able to tackle more projects, to keep them moving along, to allow Yolanda to manage the overall functions of facilities and not prioritize nearly all of her time towards these construction-related projects. So we currently have 55 construction-related projects going on, and they run the gamut from very small to pretty large dollar amounts into these projects. And what we're probably talking is a 1-year expense of around $300,000. One might ask, well, why don't you just hire someone to do that? I want to look at this as a pilot. If we ever are fortunate enough to get ourselves back into a bond project, it's my expectation that we would have these services as part of the bond. So it's kind of a 1 year to try it out, see if it does allow us to assist the colleges in the district with moving more construction projects forward. And again, I think we already have the resources as it relates to dollar amount to be able to make this happen for the benefit of the district.
Yeah, do they, whoever this might be, do they support you and your bid docs and those kind of things too? Because that eats up a lot of time and all the RFPs,
Yes.
but well, talk to me about this.
To a certain degree, they will, but our architects also help us with preparing the packet that goes out for the bidding process. We have
Who
utilized.
pushes submit?
We do.
Okay. And so the architects will review it all and maybe you'll ask you or you to review, okay, this is ready to go.
We have a template that we've worked on together with the architect firm. We've now recently implemented a thing called Planet Bids, which many other K-14 districts are using, so that instead of, and I'm not sure if we're quite there yet, but it normally is everyone comes and brings their bids at 5 p.m. And it's like, no, let's do these all. Let's kind of automate this.
We're doing that, right? I mean, we did that
as well. But remember, some of those Cupco projects add a lot of effort, right? Because it's easier to go ahead and get this construction project moving forward, but we still need the oversight.
I think you made a good case, but that many 55 already in a pipeline or on?
We have 55 funded projects. That doesn't include anything that's come through for preliminary estimate. Some of our programs want to apply for grant funding and they need to have that estimate so they know what to ask for. So these are just the funded, doesn't include anything that's in preliminary.
So this would be like a capital project consultant,
Correct.
basically.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I'm very much in favor of it and hiring it out under a contract. Because that makes way more sense than putting it in-house. I mean, that's the way most sane government agencies do it. You know, Stanislaus County, of all the 58 counties in California, they came up with their own capital projects team, and it just grew and grew and grew. And it just, yeah. So this is the way to go. This is really the way to go.
Thank you for your insight. And
Thank
You
you.
have somebody local.
we have
Tomorrow.
2 firms, one that assisted us with construction management in the past. And we've already been reaching out statewide as to our experts and say, who do you recommend? So I think we went to 3 primary and we got 2 responses. And so after hearing this information, we'll be interviewing those 2 firms and determining what we like best. And so this research has already identified people that are being used locally and that are other consultants that assist other.
Yes, and they specialize in school construction, DSA. So
Yeah, find someone new. I think that's good to bring in the mix.
And our architects have worked with both
yes,
of these groups or either one?
yes, they have.
Okay, wonderful. And at some point, I don't know if you want, we've talked about it before, get an update on where this football stadium, press bot, whatever you call it. Right now, or,
We're registered with GSA.
yeah,
And so we have one meeting to talk about the construction timeline. So I think it's push it out a couple of months. We'll need a little bit longer. But we're registered and we're ready to submit documents. The documents are all going to be uploaded to GSA this month.
So the current timeline,
To be
pending
extended
any
slightly, yeah.
extension,
And
the work was going to be performed when, currently before the extension.
We were gonna take this stadium down in May. I think we're gonna push the timeline out 3 months. So we need to,
Push it out into football season.
It was always gonna
it was gonna be down, it's gonna be down for almost a year.
And Yolanda, some of the board trustee would like to see what is designed. They said they didn't have any feedback. I don't know if we're in the design already or we did, I just came in the middle. But definitely they'd like to see the designs.
If there's the most complex, I wanna say this first box is probably more complex to put together than a brand new building. But we did get there. And we do have another layout and we've been meeting with the college on that. So I've requested updated renderings, not the detailed architectural drawings, so that we can share with the board.
Yeah, please, if you send out.
well, my position is that the college, the athletic department and the community come first. I'm not a press box expert. So if the college is happy with it and the athletic department is happy with it and the community is ultimately happy with it, I'm good with it. That's my position. I mean, anything's better than what we got now.
And I
Right.
think, yeah, they want to see, so like, this is what it looks like, so that we have some idea, like the rendering.
Right, what they're also gonna see is access.
Well,
They're gonna
that's what's
see
driving the
access.
cost.
That's
Yeah,
driving
that's
the
what's
cost.
driving the cost.
Your stick, your wind load and your ADA is what drove the cost.
Better of weight, meaning, sure, we'd love to do, twice as big and twice.
Can't, yeah.
Tall, but based on the weight. we
Yeah.
can't do a lot.
Just Chancellor, just tell them we haven't torn down the east wing, so we're good.
So as they're constructing that, where do we play our games? Waterford High or?
It will still be here. It's just-
Nice try, nice try.
Looking for alternative location.
There you go.
Columbia
We have a press box.
We'll push it football.
And if we need, I don't think they would, but if we need to do a contract, yeah,
Well, with the high school.
yeah, I know, but you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, get it to us and we'll make sure to,
So North High School.
yeah, there you go. Okay. Anything else? All right, the next finance committee meeting will be held on Monday, December 1st, back here at 1:00. That. Yeah. Anybody ever been to Lone Pine?